It is an early morning here in Alpine, Wyoming. I'm getting a new landing light on the Bonanza today, and the FAA would really like you not to know why. I'll tell you about it in a minute.
Quick 45-minute flight here from Alpine to Evanston.
It's gonna be the first time one of these lights has ever been installed on an A36 Bonanza.
There's a convective outlook today, but the forecast in 8 flight looks pretty decent.
Alpine traffic Bonanza, back taxiing runway 31 Alpine.
I'm not one to advocate for more regulation or something like that. I think it's important that, companies can innovate, and I think the FAA already makes that hard enough for, new entrants and so on. But, there's kind of this false notion out there that if you're buying some aviation product, it's good to go. And really, you have to do a little deeper dive to see what's going on. Okay, controls, instruments, gas, attitude, autopilot, run-up, switches, seatbelts, safety. You guys ready to go? I'm ready to go. Get out of here.
Alpine traffic Bonanza, departing runway 31 Alpine.
Okay, run-up complete. I really need to clean the windshield. Water's starting to go down a bit here. Fun while it lasted. So I've had the Lopresti, now Wheelan, HID landing light on this airplane as long as I've had the airplane, so 10 years now, right? Every year or two, it fails. They send me a new one. It works great. It's fantastic. When it works, it is the brightest light out there. And, you can land no runway lights and see the runway clear as day, things like that. It's fantastic. But it gets dimmer over time and then eventually just stops working altogether. And this happens very predictably. They've told me over the years, like, oh, we redesigned this ballast. Here's a new one. It'll work better now. Never happens. Obviously, I'm getting a little bit tired of that, and Dan from eVision reached out and told me about the HID and LEDs that they have and why they're so much better, and immediately I was sold. Here's the thing, though. I've been through this with alternators.
A pretty long saga here.
We were drawing 15 amps. It's like a 15 amp hour battery. I had a plain power alternator, a little mini 100 amp, and I'd been having a couple of weird electrical issues, and so we decided to swap alternators because I had a lot of time on that alternator. Figured maybe it's just about time. So I got a new alternator. Everything worked fine for a little bit, and then it didn't. Failed again. The alternator is basically just not working at all. It looks like we lost the alternator. Basically, the alternator would just keep tripping and going offline. Tried a whole bunch of things. Tried new voltage regulators, tried new alternators, and it was like all of a sudden I just had this, electrical issue where no matter what alternator I had, it would not stay online. Alternators, voltage regulators, everything just wouldn't work.
Evanston traffic, man, the 7 hotel pops left down, runway 5, Evanston.
Okay, 3 green, 1 notch of flaps, good on speed, so turning in. Full flaps. We'll plan to touch down at the first taxiway. Finally, I just put the old alternator back on, and that solved the problem. I kind of started digging into this, and I realized that there's really no FAA oversight on how these parts are made, what technical criteria they meet, how they're tested, and so on.
What kind of standard are they basically held to?
Their alternator will be made per a TSO, Technical Standard Order, that is approved by the FAA. And basically, Hartzell Technologies has to go in with the FAA and say, hey, we want to take this old Continental alternator and we want to make a lightweight replacement for it. And here's the standards data that this alternator from Continental does, and here's what we're going to do. And they have to prove to them that it is matching. And then, because they're already issued a TSO, because they're a large manufacturer, they can build it under their TSO as a brand new alternator.
And so you can buy a part that's supposed to be an exact drop-in replacement for something you already have, and it turns out it just doesn't work. And that to me was kind of concerning, because it seems like, as a pilot, we expect that, when you're buying these things at a 10x markup because they're certified and, FAA approved parts, that they should probably work and they should be tested to some, real standards that ensure that. And it turns out that's just not the case.
This is a standard Phillips bulb. There is no modification. It's the same bulb.
So it can go either way. When you get into these, it could go easy or it could turn into a major project.
Sure.
Whether you're a big manufacturer or whether you're a little guy like me with just an STC and an AML.
Sure, but so if they just want to slap an alternator on, basically they end up just doing it under a TSO that they already have.
Typically that's how it's done.
And if you wanted to make a new alternator and put it on there, you'd have to go through a whole STC process.
I'd have to do STC process.
Do all kinds of testing on that specific
Right.
airframe and so on. So Carrie's going to keep working on the install, documenting everything for the STC and whatnot. And Dan and I are hopping in his glass air to head back to Alpine. It's going to take a day or two for Carrie to produce all the technical drawings and kit details for the installation, so Dan's going to give me a ride back to Alpine, but it looks like it's going to be a pretty easy installation, in part because they use a cable with a connector that actually fits the right way, unlike the previous one, and it's also certified to DO 160 standards to avoid any avionics interference. So these things are actually tested to real standards. They use bulbs and ballasts that are actually rated for the power used, while others aren't. And they even designed a bracket to mount the ballast instead of just using adhesive like the Whelen Lopresti kit. It's a true doubly shielded cable, and the ballast actually has a heat sink. The bulb is actually rated for 75 watts. I like to have mine on all the time, even during the day, because it just makes you so much more visible to other traffic, to birds, and so on. Okay, so the bulb assembly
Yep.
has a plastic lens, so it gets just colored and darkened there from the heat,
Yep.
and it just it's cloudy. It doesn't allow as much light to be transmitted through it.
Right.
And then your bulb, so this one, nice hardened glass, stronger, way clearer, lets a lot more light out. Any HID bulb loses some of its brightness after about 1,000 hours and should be replaced. Nobody else really tells you that. They just try to sell you on the latest and greatest new system instead for a lot more money. Got the new HID here, new ballast. It really looks fantastic. I mean, you just tell it's a much higher build quality than the other one was. And same on the ballast. It's not just off-the-shelf parts crammed into an airplane with a new, modified for aircraft use sticker on it or something. Carrie here at K&R in Evanston did a great job on the install. They're adding it to their STC. So now you can go grab one of these and throw it on a Bonanza. Most of these they just do for OEMs, so they're on like most of the Diamond aircraft, a few others, Robinson, stuff like that, and a bunch of military applications and so on. But I think it's going to last a lot longer. It's going to be a lot brighter, and we'll see how it goes. I'll go test it out at night too.
Really, at the end of the day, it just kind of falls on pilots and operators to do their own due diligence and make sure that the products they're buying are, in fact, the best and reliable. Okay, controls, instruments, gas, attitude, run up, seatbelt switches, safety. I'll do a quick run up here. And so that's why I was really excited that Dan found me, because I had no idea there was a better alternative out there. Just to be safe. Just like the alternator situation, it seems like a lot of times these manufacturers really cut some corners to save a few bucks. If you have a landing line in an airplane, you want it to work. And if it doesn't work that time, then it doesn't matter that it worked all the other times. Here we go. Okay, there's full power, a little bit more fuel. Right around there should be good, 21.5 gallons an hour. Up here, maybe just 22 to be safe. Not gonna make that big a difference. Airspeed's alive, we're looking for 50 knots in half of the runway. We got 50 knots in like 2/7 of the runway. 60. 4,000 feet remaining, there's 70. Just barely lift off, accelerate, ground effect. Above VX, like for gear up. Continue accelerating and just get a whole bunch of extra airspeed up here. We don't have the inertia to really keep it with the gusts and stuff. Got this new Z Vision HID. It's going to be much more powerful, brighter, but most importantly, just longer lasting than the Whelen one that I had. One, the ballast is just going to keep working. It's not going to have to get replaced every couple of years like the previous one. but also the bulb is just going to last longer because it's operating at what it's rated to be operated at, and it has a glass lens instead of plastics, so that's not going to fog up and reduce the transmittance even more. So they also have some LEDs with some active cooling, so they have a fan in them that's watertight and everything, and keeps them cool so they don't dim. They stay brighter than everything else and over a wider area too, so really just light everything up. I mean, you look at these things and you're just like, wow, that is, you can tell by looking at it that it's going to be bright, and then they turn it on and you're like, wow, that is crazy bright, even in the day. Yeah, so just some cool products, checking them out, and you guys should too. Go check out Z-Vision, get some better lighting. So head back today, no thunderstorms along the way. Should be good. Taking a look at 8 flight here, see the forecast. So a couple people have asked for like a little demo of this. I'll just show you guys. Really the cool thing we have on the map is this time slider at the bottom. So you can just slide to select whatever day and time you want and see a snapshot of what the weather's going to look like, what FBOs are actually open, what restaurants are open, that sort of thing, if you select the little open now button. So you can see, what is open at 10 p.m. on a Saturday or something, or whether it's an FBO, a restaurant, etc. You can see just full serve fuel if you want, all sorts of things like that. Got this cool new Z-Vision. It's XE Vision, like a Xenon. See how it goes. I'm excited.
But yeah, testing this thing out the other night, it's the brightest light I've ever seen on a GA airplane. It completely illuminates the runway and feels like something I can actually trust, even though it's less expensive than the cut corner alternatives, since it turns out you really just have to see it for yourself and maybe peel back a couple labels.